In a quiet town nestled between thick, shadowy woods and towering mountains, lived a man named Thomas Grange. Thomas appeared to be an ordinary man, an accountant by profession, with an unruffled demeanor and a seemingly mundane routine. But beneath his calm exterior lay secrets that veered dangerously close to the inscrutable mysteries of the forest. One winter evening, as the sky turned a shade of ashen gray and the moon cast eerie shadows on the snow-covered grounds, Thomas received a mysterious letter. It was a plain, unmarked envelope that slipped silently through the slot in his wooden door. "Come to the old chapel at midnight. Do not notify the authorities." Thomas felt a shiver run down his spine. The old chapel stood on the edge of town, almost swallowed by the forest, abandoned for decades and whispered about only in hushed tones. He found it difficult to maintain focus that evening, his accounting ledgers half forgotten on the mahogany desk. The hours ticked by, the anticipation binding him like invisible chains. When the clock struck 11, he took a deep breath, wrapped himself in a thick coat, and ventured out into the chill of the night. The road to the chapel was deserted, the only sound being the crunch of frozen leaves beneath his boots. Thomas could see his breath misting in the air, the distant hoot of an owl making him hasten his steps. As he approached the chapel, its dilapidated walls loomed ominously, ivy creeping like dark veins across its stone facade. With hesitation, he pushed open the heavy wooden door. It creaked loudly, echoing through the silence of the vast, empty hall. Moonlight streamed through the shattered stained glass windows, casting colorful but ghostly patterns on the floor. Thomas stepped inside, his footsteps reverberating off the walls. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the shadows. It was an old man, hunched and trembling. His eyes glimmered with a mix of fear and urgency. He gestured for Thomas to come closer, his bony fingers like skeletal branches. "You must help me," the old man rasped, his voice cracking with desperation. Thomas narrowed his eyes, suspicion simmering beneath the surface. "Who are you? Why did you send for me?" The old man took a deep breath and looked around nervously. "There's little time. My name is Father Edmund. I was the last caretaker of this chapel. I know who you really are, Thomas." Thomas stiffened. His heart pounded. "And who do you think I am?" he asked, his voice quivering slightly. "You are not just an accountant," Father Edmund said, his gaze piercing straight through him. "You are the son of Samuel Grange, the once famous researcher who vanished without a trace 20 years ago." The mention of his father's name sent a jolt through Thomas. His father had disappeared when he was just a young boy, leaving behind a legacy shrouded in mystery and pain. "What does my father have to do with this?" Thomas demanded, taking a step forward. "He was onto something," the priest revealed, his voice barely more than a whisper now. "Something dangerous, something that involved those woods. He uncovered secrets that people in power wanted buried." Thomas's breath hitched. "So what happened to him?" Father Edmund shook his head. "I do not know the full story, but I do know this. There are forces that do not want people finding out the truth, and they will stop at nothing." The old priest reached into his coat and pulled out a worn, leather-bound journal. "This belonged to your father. It contains his notes, his findings. Guard it with your life, Thomas. I have kept it hidden for years, but they're closing in on me. They will find me soon." With trembling hands, Thomas accepted the journal. At that moment, the chapel's door burst open, letting a piercing cold wind sweep inside. Thomas spun around to see hooded figures standing at the entrance, their silhouettes dark and menacing. Father Edmund shoved Thomas towards a hidden exit behind the altar. "Go! There's a hidden path through the woods. Follow it. Don't look back." Thomas hesitated, but the urgency in the old man's eyes propelled him forward. He dashed towards the exit, clutching the journal to his chest. The last thing he heard before fleeing into the night was Father Edmund's voice, raised in defiance, a brief, valiant resistance. Plunging into the forest, Thomas stumbled along the narrow, treacherous path. The woods seemed alive, the trees whispering secrets and the shadows dancing with malevolence. The cold air bit into his skin, his breath coming out in short, labored gasps. After what felt like an eternity, Thomas emerged onto a clearing. His heart pounded as he realized he was far from the town, deep in the forest's embrace. Warily, he opened the journal. The pages were filled with cryptic notes, drawings, and maps. a fragmented mosaic of his father's quest for truth. Underneath the last entry was a solitary symbol that sent a chill down his spine, a circle with an eye at its center, accompanied by an unsettling phrase, "They are always watching." Thomas knew his life was irrevocably changed. He was no longer just an accountant, but a silent witness to his father's mysterious fate. As he set off deeper into the forest, the journal clutched tightly in his hands. The wood's sinister whispers grew louder, urging him towards an unknown destiny. And so, with the weight of his father's legacy on his shoulders, Thomas Grange walked into the darkness, a lone figure lost in a labyrinth of secrets, hunted by unseen forces that threatened to consume him. The truth was out there, hidden within the silent trees,